on the ballot on Tuesday, Measure A in the city of Los Angeles, which would raise the city's sales tax to 9.5%. It would raise it by ½ cent. Miguel Santana is the Los Angeles City Administrative Officer. He's here representing Yes on Prop A. Ron Kaye, former editor at the Los Angeles Daily News. He's with the no side. Thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
The affirmative gets the first spot. Why should we approve this measure?
Because we already did 80% of the work. 4 years ago when the fiscal crisis hit, the city went to an unprecedented task of trying to solve a $1 billion deficit that would come into play when the new mayor becomes mayor. Since then, we renegotiated our contracts. We reduced the size of the workforce by over 5,000 employees. We eliminated redundancies and consolidated departments. We did everything we could to avoid cuts in public safety, and now we're at a point that any further cuts would have to be done and ultimately impact the number one issue that most people care about, which is public safety.
And you're facing more cuts. You have a large deficit still.
We're projecting deficits out in the future, correct? And every year it's going to be harder and harder to continue balancing the budget without having to reduce police and fire.
So you will cut officers, you believe, if this doesn't pass?
I think over time that's the likely scenario the city will be facing. Our animal services department has been cut by over 20%. Our information technology department has been nearly cut in half. Our general services department that maintains our clean parks and fixes our cars has been cut by almost a third. So across the board, there's been significant reductions throughout the city. We will always have a balanced budget. We're required to in the charter, but maintaining public safety will become much more difficult in the future without this measure.
Ron Kaye, police officers are going to be cut if this doesn't get passed.
Boy, they're putting a gun to our head, aren't they? They've had 5 years now, the 5th year of this crisis. They had a structural deficit when it began. They have a structural deficit now. The payroll costs have risen throughout this entire period. There may be 5,000 fewer positions in the general fund, but only 400 people were laid off. The 2,400 people were paid off to retire in a shotgun approach that eliminated senior management and created chaos. And the rest of the people were transferred to the DWP, the harbor, the ports, and special funds. These weren't a solution. It's not Miguel's fault. The city council and the mayor have shown no backbone, no political will, no willingness to come to terms with the fact that their payroll, benefits, and pension costs are out of line with what the city can afford. So they cut services, they close the libraries' hours, they close park programs, they take it out on the public, and then they come without a solution to this problem for a permanent tax that would make us one of the highest sales taxes in the country, a regressive tax that hurts the poorest people more than it hurts everybody else, and they say, give us $200 million and we won't fire any cops. Well, the truth is that they've grown the police force. There's 1,000 cops on civilian duty because they got rid of civilian workers, paying twice as much to cops to do civilian jobs. They haven't solved the problem. It's time, if we vote this down, we can go to the table and start talking about how we fix LA and get it moving again.
Yeah, but they'll make the argument that police went up and crime went down. And that's the formula that has worked thus far. The Chamber of Commerce supports that idea. They support this tax.
Well, the Chamber of Commerce makes a lot of big mistakes in supporting the power structure in LA. Other business groups haven't. But yes, I think the civic elite and business elite in this town have not provided the leadership. Cities across the country, crime is down across America. Cities that have reduced their police forces are still seeing reductions in crime. It's never been a one-to-one relationship. 10,000 cops was a fiction. Wendy Gruhl's 12,000 cops is ridiculous. The question is how do we get a city that serves the neighborhoods, regenerates the economy, and makes a better life for everybody, not just for those who can afford it.
Mr. City Administrative Officer, the argument is made that you've had accounting tricks to a certain degree, that the real hard work hasn't been done. The LA Times makes that point, that this is not going to force the city to make the very difficult decisions that it's put off.
Well, that's not really fair, because the truth is we need to start with the conversation about revenue. We're ending this conversation with revenue. For the last 4 years, we've done everything we can, including renegotiate our labor contracts, not just once, but twice. City employees used to pay nothing, absolutely nothing, for retiree health care. And now most city employees on the civilian side are paying 4% of that salary for a benefit that used to be given for free. On the foreign side, they're paying 2%. We eliminated departments across the city. The truth is that while the city has had to rely on one-time revenue, it also every year at least half of the solutions, if not more, have been ongoing. And so the question really is now to the voters. The question before them, this isn't magic. It's simple arithmetic, as President Clinton once said. It's our revenues are simply not catching up to our expenditures. And the only alternative is to make further cuts. It means, and when over 70% of the general fund budget goes to public safety, and we cut everything else by 20 to 40%, the only thing left is public safety. And so the question really is now for the voters to make that determination. Can the city afford further reductions? Look at the quality of your streets. Look at the fact that we barely maintain our infrastructure. The fact that trees aren't being trimmed in the city. Our sidewalks are not being maintained. These are very simple public services that we're supposed to provide that we're struggling to do so today.
Right, but you want to develop job growth in the city of Los Angeles, and here you're adding another tax to businesses.
Well,
the car dealers can't be happy, although we know that you're charged your sales tax based on the registration. Most people don't know that, which is why they go to somewhere else to buy the car.
You know, what we saw that in Santa Monica when they did this, that did not happen. Culver City just adopted it. Over 40 cities around the state have reached this level of sales tax, and that in fact hasn't happened. I was doubtful. I was concerned in the same way you are, so we brought in a separate outside economist, Chris Thornburg, who determined that there would be a 2% loss. But for the most part, our economy will continue to grow. Imagine the economic impact if, in fact, the city continues to be limited in providing services. There's a threat to public safety.
You have the final word.
Look, for 30 years, City Hall has taken the money to repair the roads. We have the worst roads in America, and put it into salaries, pensions, and benefits. They've taken the money. They have no sidewalk policy for 30 years of who's responsible. And the candidate for city attorney this year, Mike Fewer, is long on the record. It's only $7 million in trip and false lawsuits. What are we worried about? That's cheaper than fixing sidewalks. Santa Monica has good sidewalks. Glendale has good sidewalks. These are towns that are healthy economies, low rates of poverty, that have managed their affairs well. LA has not been managing its affairs well, and there's no sign in this election that it will do so. Money be down the drain. Union contracts are up. They are all there lined up with their hands out, blaming Miguel here for the decisions of the mayor and council. That's not going to work.
Measure A is the ballot measure on